listen up. Y'all, it's the queen of automation, Megan Donnelly, here to give you inspiration. Founders and business owners gather round. I'ma show you how to build systems that'll astound. Streamline your processes, no need for...
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Queen of Automation podcast. My name is Megan Donnelly, and on this podcast we talk about why technology is only good when it works and how I help you make it work. Today is going to be mind-blowing because we are here with Karen Grill. She is another one of my favorite people because she's in the brand built community. And Karen is a superstar when it comes to email deliverability. And it's a horrible thing that everybody forgets to, I shouldn't say they forget to do it, but they don't know necessarily how to do it. And because Google and all of this, the people are changing things so quickly behind the scenes and it messes your deliverability up. And anyway, we'll let her get into that. But Karen Grill, welcome. Tell everybody where you're tuning in from, and please tell everybody all about who you are and why did you choose email deliverability to be I'm a business coach, and that's kind of like what people like. Why did you choose technology? I don't know, because I'm crazy. What can I say? Anyway, go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me, Megan. So I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, and I'm a business coach, but I started my first online business over 15 years ago, and I made a lot of mistakes. I learned along the way, and I really started helping people start their online businesses. But I realized that they were having trouble with kind of the technology and kind of, doing funnels and email. And so that's where I started to be able to help people. Now, I didn't necessarily focus on email deliverability all the time. But last year, when kind of the email marketing landscape blew up, a lot of my past clients, a lot of people were coming to me and asking, what does this mean for me as a business owner? And I realized there's a lot of technical information out there, but they don't explain what that means to you as a business owner, especially like a solopreneur. So that's how kind of chose me. I didn't necessarily choose it.
Isn't that always the way? I feel like I stumbled and tripped into this world of building systems and technology stuff, and it was totally this ass backwards way. I didn't go, ooh, I want to, deal with broken technology on a daily basis. This sounds like fun. Let's do that for a living. And it totally makes sense that you say that, because last year it was last year, right? The big Google change when, shit hit the fan and everything broke. It wasn't like they just broke everybody. And it didn't matter that they sent the email out saying they were going to do it, because nobody knew what it meant or understood what it meant, which is why they were emailing you, which is...
Well, and they didn't do a good job communicating the changes, right? They didn't do that well. And it came pretty quickly before even the email service providers had time to update and everything. So it was not handled well overall.
No, it was absolutely not. I think it was a big faux pas on their part, for sure, because they did a horrible job. And if you weren't on that distribution list, if you weren't a Google person, I get Google alerts all the time because I want to know what's going on in the Google world, because we have local clients too, right? Brick and mortars, that local SEO is amazing for them, right? Well, I want to know when they're going to break it. When's my stuff going to stop working? And I want it but for those people that either weren't on the distribution list or got the email and didn't understand it, thank God for people like you, because what would they have done otherwise, And I even came to you a couple weeks, or was it a couple months ago, with email, because and I understand how to set it up, and it still wasn't working. And I was like, I don't know what else to do. We tried and we troubleshooted, and it eventually started working. I honestly don't know what I changed, by the way, Karen. I did get it working. I don't know which of the tweaks that you told me to go through. I don't even know which one it was that made it work. But now it's delivering fine. And I'm like, I don't touch it. I'm like, nobody touch the DNS. For anybody who doesn't know what the DNS thing is, if you don't know what DNS is, don't touch it. Talk to Karen, because just don't mess with the DNS. Geez. Anyway, whatever. So moving on. One of the things I always like to ask all of my guests when I bring them on, because I think this is such a huge thing in the entrepreneur world, is the whole work-life balance. And I put quotes on it like that because I hate that term. I absolutely hate it. But there's really because there is no work-life balance. It's all one life. We have one life. You're either doing business things or you're doing personal things, but it's all one life. And I always tell people to build a lifestyle you love instead of just building a career or a business. Because just why would you want to build yourself a job? Like, I would like to build myself a life that I like to live, and the money and the business and stuff like that's all tools to get me there, right? So I would love to hear your take on that, because you are an entrepreneur that has been in the game for a while, similar to myself, and it goes in these weird ebbs and flows, but everyone is so on this like work life balance kick right now, like all over LinkedIn and just all over the interwebs. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That is not actually like a thing. How do you can't like separate, you don't have two lives. Like, it doesn't, I don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah, so I totally hear you on that. And I feel I had I can't even remember. I read several things over the holidays, and one of them said you have one energy bucket, right? So you're not dividing the bucket up into
No.
like one bucket of energy. And so you have to be really careful about how you use it. And I found recently I don't think I was allowing myself enough rest and recovery. And I read a whole bunch on that this kind of over the holidays, that I have rest when I have my vacations or I have the time off, but I don't incorporate it enough in my schedule. So that's one of my big things for 2025, really scheduling in rest and recovery time for myself. And I'm, always looking for new ways to make sure I'm not only being productive, but making sure I'm having that time for myself, my family, and all the things that I want to do. And I think that's the big thing for me this year, recovery time.
That's awesome. I think that's a big thing for a lot of entrepreneurs this year, because COVID just kicked our asses, right? Like that whole thing. And I hate to even say it. Like I try to not touch that subject because it was so over talked about then, which who can blame people, right? Like whatever. But it really kicked all of our butts. Like, and then it's just, and it was especially for us digital people because the people who didn't have anything online and made the pivot to online, then we're reaching out to all of us to help them get online. And it was kind of like, wow. And for a while there, it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was super crazy. And then I think we all kind of like forgot how to take care of ourselves, and keep ourselves healthy. It's super funny that you say the energy thing. You should go check out my post today. It was all about that and how time is finite. And then stop focusing on time management and focus on energy management. That was my entire post on LinkedIn today, because you could have all the time in the world, but if you have no energy and you're crashed because you're not taking care of yourself, well, what the heck is time going to do? Great, you have all this time, but you have absolutely no energy stored to use the time, right? So it's so funny that you say that, because I have been on this crazy energy kick lately and trying to find like different vitamins. And right now, like energy water, it's actual water, but you put the little drops in and it's got like different vitamins and hydration. There's like D12 and like whatever, all this stuff in there. The fitness guys in our group would be so proud of me because I'm so bad at it. Like, I'm so bad at taking care of myself. So that should be a goal of mine this year too. Like, it's like what we do what we have to do, right? As entrepreneurs to make it through, I don't know. It's
But I also
crazy.
think we have to learn to know ourselves, right? Because, a lot of people can tell us what worked for them, but that doesn't necessarily mean it works for us. And so I think it's all about discovering kind of what things work the best for you, how you can manage your energy, what, routines and things work for you, because it's not going to be the same for everyone. So it's kind of that whole thing, like online business is testing.
There's no blueprint. Yeah. There's no blueprint for like, or human DNA blueprint that's going to say like what I put in my body is it's going to have the same effect when you put it in your body. Or like Nat can sleep. He can like nap like nobody's business. Like he'll nap throughout the, like, I can't do that. I have to get like a good, like 3 hours, right? Like 2 hours. It has to be like, I can't sleep for like if I sleep for 45 minutes in an hour and I wake up, then I feel less rested. I don't know why. But
I
that's
do.
just, some people can nap. My youngest kid, he like power naps like crazy, and he just like sleeps for like 15 minutes and then he's up and he's ready to go. And I'm like, how do you do that? I want to know how to do that. I wish I could train my body to do that. Just like, anyway, whatever. I digress. But let's jump back onto the deliverability topic, because it's huge, right? You can have the best business in the world, you have the best products, you have the best services, you have the best marketing, you have the best sales, all of the stuff, right? If your emails aren't reaching the inbox, it doesn't matter. It's all a moot point, right? Where do you start with people? I know when we jumped in, I kind of just, because I had the knowledge, so I just threw a bunch of stuff at you, right? How do you start with somebody who doesn't understand email deliverability? I mean, obviously, I hope at a baseline people understand that it's important, right? Like if it's going to spam, everything's going to spam. That's a problem, or not showing up at all. I would love to have you talk us through that process. Or how about this? Give our audience and listeners like troubleshooting tips that they can do on their own before they were to like reach out to somebody like myself or you, right? Like what should they start with? Where should they look?
It's pretty simple. It's actually looking at your email data. So most people don't look at their numbers at all, right? So schedule a time each month to look at your numbers. So one of the things that they did when Google and Yahoo did their whole change, the way they penalize is they do like you send an email, they'll penalize maybe 5% and the next time 10%. So it's very slow. And I actually think that's not good for us because if it was dramatic, we would see it right away. But one is this like slow penalization. We don't really see it until it's kind of really bad, right? We don't really notice a drop off, and especially people don't look at their numbers. So they don't see that, right? So it's so important that you're on top of your numbers, right? That you know, okay, what's a typical kind of open rate? Remember, open rates aren't 100%, guaranteed that it's accurate. But you can look at the baseline over time. And that's why it's so important that you know those numbers. Now, I'm not saying you have to look every week. I'm not saying every time you send an email, but at least schedule that time in so you can see if there's all of a sudden a drop. You're like, now I know I need to go check something, see if people are actually receiving my emails or not.
Pro tip right there for everybody who's listening. Know your numbers, first of all. We've talked about this many times on this podcast. Know your numbers. It's not just about email. Know your numbers across the board. If you don't know your business numbers, you're pretty much dead in the water. But with emails, they made a funky change a while ago. Again, something else that broke everything and it screwed up the open rates. But I don't know if everybody's heard this before, but I'm going to say it now. So like Google Analytics is never 100% like you can get because it's considered trending data. You can get it pretty dang close now with GA4, and there's other things that you can do to put in place to make it pretty, like almost like 100% accurate or like a 1-to-1. But generally, tracking data like that is never a 1-to-1, and it's always trending. So what she said is spot on. You want to look at your trend line. You're not going to see an accurate, like if you're looking at it every day or even every like 7 days, it's really not going to help you like in a long run. And this goes with all numbers, not just emails. Like if you're so engrossed in looking at your numbers like all the time, like on a daily basis, you're going to get burnt out. You're going to get analysis paralysis. I hate that word too, but it is a thing. And you will then become so focused on the negative things of your business, because that's what happens when you look at your numbers. You hone in on the things that are bad and you focus on those, right? So this is the one and only time I'm going to tell you to focus on the negative thing, because email deliverability means your message isn't reaching anybody. So when you see the trends and you see that your open rates are dropping, that is a sign that you need to figure out what's going on. Is it getting stuck in spam? Is it getting to the boxes at all? I find it happens more, and I'd love to get your opinion on this too, because I find it happens more with, so the client that I was working with is dealing with huge corporations, right? So there's firewalls and there's spam bots and they're checking, and so there's a lot of red tape that they have to get through, that these emails have to get through. So if you're cold prospecting to giant corporations, it's a completely different ballgame. And I would love to hear, let's talk about that for a minute, because you and I unpacked it. I mean, and we literally, you had me tweak everything. And I had already done a bunch of that tweaking, and we went back and retweaked it. And it was crazy. What's the difference between like those big, huge corporate firewalls and like, if I'm sending you an email in your Gmail box, like how do we help people get around that?
Yeah, it's much more difficult just because they have IT teams. I mean, that's their whole thing is to try to keep out unwanted email, right? So I think it's really incumbent upon you, if you are someone who's emailing corporations, is to make sure that the person that you're trying to reach, maybe they know you, make sure if they want your emails, you got to say, hey, you guys need to be proactive and take action. Otherwise, you're not going to receive them. I will tell you one trick that I found works for a lot of people is removing your fancy signature in your emails. That prevents a lot of your emails getting through, whether it's Outlook or these corporate things. Because I had one person that I helped who had a really cool, it was like a GIF, and it was like kind of moving in his signature, and his emails weren't getting delivered. And we're really going through, and I was looking, all the, technical things looked fine. When we removed that, they all got through. So, something as simple as that can make a huge difference. So I would
Because it's
start
an
there.
attachment, right? Because
Yes. Yes. And, they have a lot of strict protocols too. So I think the GIF was also part of it because it has something that seems suspicious, right? So I
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
take out anything. I would have plain text, nothing in there that could potentially do that. Headlines obviously are a thing too. So be careful some of the words used and things like that. But if you're, cold practice selecting corporations is hard. If you actually have someone trying to sign up for your email, you need to have them take some steps to make sure you're getting through.
Because they can whitelist it, right? Like they can have
Yeah,
their IT
exactly.
team whitelist certain emails and stuff like that. Do you have a go-to? I always was curious about this, and I actually should have asked you this a while ago. Do you have a go-to list of like words? That's a big thing too, right? Like what you put in your subject line
Mhm.
can prevent that from sending too. Not so much if you're just going back and forth between small businesses and Google and you don't have a big, huge firewall to get through. But it affects that too,
Yeah.
doesn't it? I mean, it'll put you right into the spam folder depending on how you word things.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with email deliverability is there's so many factors, right, that could be causing you problems. And definitely, I definitely have lists of words, and so I'm happy to share that. But you know, anything now that seems salesy, remember we have a lot of automated bots who are checking the things, right, for the spam folders and things. So even if you're not using it maybe in the way that's spammy like, it can still flag it, right? So you want to have, of course, compelling and persuasive headlines and subject lines, but you don't want to have them include words, like all caps, any kind of, I would not do emojis. I find that those are problematic. If you use them a lot, I think once or twice or something, but if you use them a lot, I think that could be problematic. Again, think of it from the perspective of like Google or Yahoo. They're trying to have the best user experience for their users, right? And anything that looks spammy, they want to avoid. So just try not to use anything that looks spammy. Don't say, sale ending now, like stuff like that. They don't want to see that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's especially if it's super funny too based on your brand. I
Mhm.
find that like e-commerce brands can do that,
Yeah.
can use, but it's because the content that's in the email is very when Google's bots or whatever are checking it, it's very obvious that it's an e-commerce like store. So they're
Mhm.
having a sale and it's ending, right? But for someone like us, we're selling services, it looks like a spam.
Yeah.
And I find like don't do the other one is like like financial stuff, like asking for money
Mhm.
or well, I mean, obviously don't ask for money
Right.
in your subject line. But I tend to stay away from any type of like dollar,
Yeah.
like using any type of like dollar symbol or like monetary message in the
Mhm.
subject line. Like you can put it in the body, but if you put it in the subject line, it almost gets flagged because there's so much that spam from like overseas where people are trying to scam people out of money. And there's all this, the banking industry is like notorious for spam emails and getting scammed, right? Like it's crazy. It's over the top crazy. All right, what are the top 5 words? Can you think of 5 words off the top of your head?
In my head, I don't know. So, definitely, like I said, anything money, no emoji. I find with service, like if you've bought something from an e-commerce, of course it's okay if they say sales and things, but usually as service providers for email marketing, we don't do that. So anything like sale isn't good. It could be
Yeah.
flagged. Don't say last chance or anything like that. Even if it is for like your program, you need them to sign up. You can say that in the body. I just wouldn't put that in the headline. Be creative, like really think about kind of fun ways, persuasive ways, storytelling ways that you can say that in the subject line, because you don't want your email to go to spam just because of the subject line. They don't even get to see,
Yeah.
right, the whole email that you spent the time writing. So at least let them get to open the email, and then they can make the decision whether they want to write it or you read it or, take any action on it.
That's awesome. That's perfect. Well, this has been awesome. Super, super fun. What else? Is there anything else that we should anything like that we just need to tell them about this kind of deliverability thing? I'm obviously just going to direct people to you. Like when people ask me now about it, I feel like you just, yeah, I'm just directing people to you. Even though I could probably fix it myself, it's just easier. Like I'm going to give it to the person who's really got this down because I get so frustrated, and talking to Google chat support is really no fun.
So I think a lot of people aren't aware.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people aren't even aware that's an issue. And so I'm glad that we're able to talk about that so more people know. A lot of gurus and online people tell people just start an email list. And I think that's great. I think people should have an email list because, LinkedIn or whatever platform you're on could shut down and things like that. So you want to own your audience. But they never tell you how or the steps you need to take. So I think it's so important that you at least are aware there are certain things I need to do technically to have my email list work. I think whatever email service provider you use, they usually have some content. I don't think it's 100% complete, but at least it's the first place to start. So make sure you're following their instructions for their platform. And then, like I said, put that schedule every month, like the last Friday of the month or something in your calendar. So you're looking at those numbers. So you can start to, get that baseline for yourself, see what's happening. If you're seeing some drop, both decline in kind of open rates or click-through rates, anything like that, that's when you need to say, I might need to investigate.
Yeah. And usually, what would you say the percentage of the drop is? Usually it's a pretty big drop. At least for us, when we did it with this client, it was with his established domain, because he had a new domain and an established domain, which, we didn't even touch on that. New domain people, just go talk to Karen. We're going to drop all of her information in the show notes, because get it set up right the first time. And if you're immediately on a new domain and you're trying to cold email people, good luck. You're going to need to warm that shit up, and it still may not work, because that's what we did. We warmed it up for 45 days and it didn't care. It did not matter. And now it's fine, but it's never 100% foolproof. You could still go to Karen, and she could do all of the troubleshooting on a brand new domain, do all the things, set it up all correctly, and it still could. It just takes a while to get that new domain. What's the word that I'm looking for? Reputation, right?
Yep, the center reputation. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we don't know how they penalize. They don't tell us that, right? So we don't really know kind of what happens or how it happens. So we can't really prevent it or take steps. We can only do the best we can with what we know. And so, definitely what I say is when you're starting out, I think segments and things like that are so important. Only send to small portions at the beginning for, regular email marketing. If you have a large list, I see people have a new domain. They have a list that they brought over. They have 8,000 people. They send the emails to everyone. Totally get shut down right away, right?
God.
But I think the more insidious ones are people who have been emailing for a while, and it's a slow decline. And that's harder to sit. I would rather have a sharp decline so we know right away there's a problem. So, it's incumbent upon us both to do the technical aspects, make sure that we're okay with the kind of content we're doing, make sure we're removing bounces, all those kind of people, any complaints, anything like that. We want to make sure we have clean email lists that we're emailing to. So again, we just want to do as much prevention as we can and follow the rules as best we can to avoid any big problems.
Yeah, put crap in, get crap out, people. That's the other thing is watch your, know your numbers. The other thing is clean your data. This needs to be a regular practice. You need to be doing cleaning on your lists, whether it's you physically or you have somebody on your team or whoever. If you don't have a team and you want to hire somebody to do it, fine. I do recommend you do it yourself the first few times so that you know what, who you're keeping on your, you really need to have a process of who you're keeping and who's considered okay, this person's stale and they can, be on the archive list or whatever. And I also recommend don't actually delete data. Don't ever delete it. You can mark it. Most of the systems are going to have a DND, which is do not deliver. Do not ever delete the data out of your system, because if for some reason you need it and then it's gone. And you
Mhm.
should never store it on your own personal hard drive or your own personal computer. It should
Right.
always live in the cloud behind some sort of protected firewall so you don't get fined by the
Mm.
FCC. But for sure, don't ever delete it. But she's right. Clean your lists. Like that's huge. If you're getting a super high spam rate, or if you're getting a huge bounce rate, or if people are marking it as spam, a lot of systems will turn off and not allow you to send the
Exactly.
good ones. But there's a few out there that don't care, which is a little concerning to me. This is a really good story. I had somebody, and I won't say software or anything like that. I had somebody, we moved a bunch of their lists, a huge like 10,000 plus person list, into another platform, and the new platform shut him off because he was getting such a high spam rate. And
Mhm.
it said, nope, you can't, you got to clean your list. You can't deliver this anymore. And the old platform was just letting him send it to everybody and anybody and didn't care.
Mhm.
So that was a little concerning, you know. So we, you know, obviously cleaned his list and it was fine. And then they turned it back on. And so you just have to work with your provider or
Yeah.
somebody like Karen, or you hire somebody like Karen to work with your provider, figure out what they, you know, they need you to do with your list and clean it up. But when it happens, it's devastating.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like 11,000 people that he no longer had access to because it shut him off because his
Mhm.
spam rate was like through the roof, and or the bounce rate was through the roof. So,
Because like the
you
spam
know,
rate is 0.3%. That's not big. So, if you're getting penalized after that, you're in trouble. So that's why, when I say schedule the time to look at your numbers,
yeah,
that's also cleaning.
yep,
Clean those bounces, clean anyone that, you
bounces
could,
are huge.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, it's a big way that can really weigh on your list and cause you problems. So that's why scheduling that time every month to do it will help save your list.
And really make sure you're trusting like the system too. Like if you have a good system in place, like I said, do your research.
Yeah.
If you don't know what a good provider is, then ask, but do your research because you don't want to get onto a system where they're just allowing the bounces to just happen. And then you don't have any clue about the health of your domain and you have no clue. And
Right.
so then if you do ever move or you outgrow that platform and try to go somewhere else that does have a good system, good luck, right? Like they
Right.
either won't, yeah, it's a disaster when they shut you down, that's for sure.
Hmm.
It causes a whole bunch of problems. But this has been an amazing conversation. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on. I want you to tell everybody where they can find you, how they can reach you. And we will also make sure to drop that information into the show notes so people will have like just a direct one-click link. But please tell everybody how they can find you.
Sure. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn, as Megan knows. So that's a perfect place to find me. It's just at Karen Grill. I have karengrill.com, so you can go find out some of the services I do there. And if you have any problems, reach out to me. I'm happy to. I check a lot of domains and emails for people. Just check them. If you're fine, I'll tell you you're fine and you can go on your way.
I highly recommend you do that because she is, like I said, she is a superpower when it comes to this stuff. And I was so happy to have her in my corner when I asked her a bunch of questions because there were things on her list that I was like, oh, I didn't do that. I didn't even think about that. And so she's been doing this long enough that she's probably doing or going to tell you to do things that you just don't think about when you're in the frustrated mix of things and things are happening. Having the outside voice come in and give you the list of things to do is really helpful. So that is all we have for today, everybody. Remember, technology is only good when it works, and we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.